YouTube? GK is back with another Final Fantasy 16 video. I'm really excited about this, even though the news is a little bit light. For those that don't know, this was basically a Final Fantasy channel back in the day when it first started, and we've really branched out since then, and still some Final Fantasy videos on the channel get a lot of love, especially the novella read-through of Final Fantasy X, which there have been hints at a Final Fantasy X-3, completing the trilogy I so desperately want. So I thought we'd throw in talking about other FF titles in the works, as well as the explosion of Final Fantasy XIV. If you do like the Final Fantasy content, let me know. I did make a separate playlist for this. I have numerous videos on the characters, breaking them down, reading their backstories, and working on connections, as well as the world overall, and how that all works, and where the city-states are, and what's kind of going on, all mapped out. I took the time to plot it. So check that out, and let me know what you think.
Yo, it's the Grown Kid Talk Show.
Pretty much the news on the Final Fantasy 16 development, but I thought Screen Rant had a nice article to show us what Final Fantasy Square Enix is doing overall. Every Final Fantasy confirmed in development. We have Final Fantasy 16, Yoshi P. You want more information, go check that playlist out. Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker expansion. This is going to be so hype. Everyone's playing Final Fantasy right now, and we're going to talk about this a little bit after we get through the rest of the list. But Endwalker should be hype. Again, another Yoshi P game. Go check it out. If you haven't played it, try it. If you love Final Fantasy and the stories they tell, this is definitely a game for you. 7 Remake Part 2 is in the works. Now, this is a big controversy, so to speak, in the Final Fantasy VII community specifically. How many parts will the remake be? This is one of the best, if not the best, remakes of all time in any genre, in my opinion. They truly remade that original game. Any more than 3, it kind of becomes a 200-hour slog, and that's no offense. I love myself a long game, but that's just excessive. 3 games at about 40 hours apiece, 120 hours is super, super dope. The secret game that got revealed a couple months ago, Square Enix revealed a meme-spawning trailer of Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin during its E3 2021 showcase, and the game got a demo shortly after. This is a good sign. They're showing a game, and they're bringing a demo very quickly. They're going to show a new trailer for Final Fantasy 16, and they're going to release the release date, and it's coming very quickly. I love this new trend that Square Enix is taking, because obviously Final Fantasy 15 was a big development hell. We should be blaming Nomura, because look at his track record, Kingdom Hearts 3, for example. But I digress. The Dark Souls or Devil May Cry game with traditional Final Fantasy characters, themes, and motifs. Though this world is meant to reflect the same as the FF series, it's a darker take on the series, and I love it. I hate the comparison of Dark Souls. When something's hard or that kind of aesthetic, it's Dark Souls. I think we have to come up with new words. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Get creative, journalists, and come up with a new way to describe the game's combat and what it's trying to do. If you played the demo, let me know. You have a PlayStation 5, first of all? That's crazy. But if you did, let me know how it went. I heard it was a mess initially, but they were able to fix it, then re-release the demo, and people got to play it, and people really started to get on board with it, and get on board with the story it was telling, and the combat, and how different it was. And I love my Final Fantasies as like a Twilight Zone, where it's always different every time. Final Fantasy VII is a world, a universe, a compendium of multiple games and stories told across decades, basically. This is going to be a turn-based RPG that uses loot boxes for its costumes and weapons, and it's set to release on Android and iOS devices in 2022. Yeah, so I mean, it's cool. I get it. Run with the hype of Final Fantasy VII. The thing is, mobile games here in the West are not as popular as they are in the East. And that's just fact. That's based by the numbers. Mobile games are a very big deal. The point here would be is hopefully that the story is good. It's a compilation including the first ever English localization of Before Crisis, Ever Crisis. The naming has gotten all kind of crazy, especially with the integrated Yuffie thing. I just know when it comes to FF7, all I care about is the remake. And for something else very interesting, Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier. The Final Fantasy series is taking a stab at the Battle Royale genre, a BR that supports up to 75 players per match, which is a lot of players, and will be released on Android and iOS in 2021. Again, Android and iOS. I don't see where that appeal is. I don't think the game itself really deserves a console Battle Royale, especially with that genre being flooded at the moment. Fans likely shouldn't expect a deep dive into any lore, but knowing Square Enix and Final Fantasy, there'll always be tidbits and throwbacks. Do I think that'll be worth it, especially a price tag on a BR game? One of the best things about BR is they're free. Is this going to be free? Then sure, I'll give it a stab, but it definitely is not my cup of tea. But again, if it's yours, have fun. Conceptually, kind of cool. I love where Square Enix's mind is at now. Trying new things, doing a Final Fantasy VII Battle Royale, doing a hardcore dungeon crawl in Paradise. I just like that kind of creativity. And the final one is Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters. Will be released for PC and mobile devices on July 29th, 2021. It's just hard to go back and play old school games, but the fact that it is on a mobile device might incentivize me to definitely go check it out. And in closing for this video, why is Final Fantasy XIV so popular right now? FF14 is killing it, and rightfully so. I've been playing it for a very long time, but what kind of spurred this sudden rush of popularity was basically Asmongold, and the guy gets views. He had over 200,000 people in a Twitch stream for his first day of Final Fantasy. That's a big deal. Tons of World of Warcraft content creators and players are coming to FF. They held out as long as they could. Mind you, the game was good before him, will be good after him. I'm just saying, this is the main contributor in the MMO World of Warcraft space who has jumped the game's popularity. Of course, there are tons of other reasons, like it just being a great game. I started watching him. It's actually been really dope because he's playing the story I played, so I get a refresher up to Endwalker. But the point to me is that the popularity of MMOs is still very much alive and is growing. And to me, that's exciting because I've been looking for a new MMO. And the one I'm waiting for consistently, and so many of us are Blue Protocol. MMO Byte does really good MMO news, so go check that out if you haven't. There's tons of other gaming news, like Pearl Abyss indefinitely delaying Crimson Desert, but that's another story for another time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what MMOs you're playing, what Final Fantasy title you're most excited for, what's a sleeper, what's going to be a guaranteed success. I'm the Grown Kid.